Hello and welcome back to the Crime Reel. Last week I uploaded the story of 6-year-old Kaisha Whippart, and during that video I mentioned how there was a strange connection between Kaisha's case and another case that occurred at the same time in Australia. If you haven't had a chance to watch last week's video yet, I will include a link at the end of today's story. But in the meantime, we will be returning to 2010 to look at the case of Kristi McDougal from Sydney. 31-year-old Kristi lived on the outskirts of Sydney with her son Harry, who was almost 2 years old. She also lived with her father Don and her father's partner. On Saturday the 19th of June 2010, Kristi dropped Harry at his paternal grandparents' house for his monthly visit. She was seen by friends on Park Road in Homebush at around 1 p.m. and told them that she was heading to Bankstown, some 15 minutes away. By 3:15 p.m. that day, Kristi's phone had been switched off. One of Kristi's friends contacted Kristi's father, Don, to inform him of this, as it was particularly out of character for her. Whilst initially this did not cause too much concern, when Kristi failed to pick up her son from his visit to his grandparents the following day, her friends and family knew that something was very wrong. Kristi was reported missing. She was believed to have been wearing a bright pink hoodie, black jogging bottoms, and white shoes at the time of her disappearance. She had long brown hair and blue eyes, was 162 centimetres tall and of slim build. The last time that she had been seen was when she left Homebush in her dark green Ford Falcon. Whilst it was known that Kristi had battled with drugs in the past, and at that time an extended disappearance wouldn't have been out of character, everything changed once she fell pregnant. Once she got pregnant, she got her act together, a friend said. She was just a fantastic mother. Extensive interviews were conducted with Kristi's family, friends and acquaintances, and forensic officers collected DNA samples from her home. 2 days after her disappearance, Kristi's car was found parked in a no-stopping zone at Jackson Street in Ermington, 3 miles from her home in Carlingford. By the 29th of June, the homicide squad had joined the search. Her father held out hope that his daughter would be found alive. Perhaps, he said, it all got too much for her and she decided she needed to take a break. He appealed directly to his daughter. Please send us a signal. Let us know that you're okay. In these difficult times, you draw strength from each other, he said, adding that he was in close contact with Kristi's mother, his ex-wife, Carol. July 23rd, her son's second birthday, came and went. There was still no sign of what had happened to Kristi. She had been looking forward to this day and had already bought presents and decorations to celebrate the occasion before she had disappeared. The police issued a renewed appeal to help find her. Homicide Squad Commander Detective Superintendent Peter Cotter told reporters, "I would like to think that there is somebody out there who has not come forward or who has only told us half-truths so far. The raw reality is that we have a woman who has close family ties. Her absence is out of character. We are treating it in the gravest of circumstances." It was reported that the police had interviewed a man who they believed had lied to them, and that they believed Kristi may have been heading to Bankstown to buy drugs on the day that she disappeared. Then, on the 11th of August, the case took an even more sinister turn. A woman from the local area who claimed to have special powers and was trying to sense the whereabouts of the missing 6-year-old Kaisha Whippart had found the torso of an adult woman wrapped in plastic lying on the bank of a creek in a remote area of an Aboriginal sacred site. Detective Chief Inspector Pamela Young from the State Crime Command Homicide Squad told reporters that, for those who believe in such things, I understand the woman thinks she might have some powers along that line. There was a thought in her mind, apparently, that her coming here might help the case, but it hasn't, It's quite unusual circumstances that has brought us here, that she would think that initially and then actually find a body, but it's certainly not our little child. Adding that the police were also investigating the circumstances that led the woman who has not been named to find the torso. She was found to have no involvement in either case. Investigators combed the area for the missing head, arms and legs, but without success. It was unclear how long the body had been at the site. Kristi's loved ones then had the agonising wait to see if the torso belonged to Kristi. Resigned to an extremely bad outcome, all they could do was wait and hope. It was subsequently confirmed that the torso did in fact belong to Kristi. Despite the obvious complications involved with solving a crime where only a torso is present, 8 days later, a major update was reported by the press. It had been established that Kristi was strangled and drowned before her killer cut off her head, arms and legs and then dumped her torso. Additionally, a man and woman had been charged in connection with the case. 48-year-old Robert Best was charged with murder and 42-year-old Deborah Hogden was charged with being an accessory after the fact. Deborah was granted conditional bail. She had to report to Eastwood Police Station on a daily basis, make no attempt to contact Robert, was not allowed to apply for a passport, nor approach any port of international departure. Meanwhile, Robert remained in jail, awaiting trial. Deborah confessed to the police and provided her details of the events of the murder, whilst Robert claimed he was not guilty. Based predominantly on Deborah's statement, the case presented by the police was as follows. They believed that Deborah and Kristi had entered Robert's home at Dundas sometime after 2 p.m. on June the 19th. Kristi had crystal meth, also known as ice, for Robert. Almost immediately upon entering the apartment, Robert grabbed Kristi and began choking her with a thin rope pulled tightly around her neck. As Kristi struggled, Deborah tried to intervene, but Robert allegedly threatened Deborah that she would be next. While strangling Kristi, Robert allegedly said, "That's for the children." Robert believed that Kristi had told his ex-partner that he was an intravenous drug user, resulting in him being banned from seeing his children. At this point, someone knocked on the door, asking for Valium. The police said that Robert pulled a knife on Deborah and told her to answer it and act normal. Through a gap in the door, Deborah told the witness they were playing a game and handed over the Valium. By now, the police allege Kristi was unconscious. Robert then filled a plastic rubbish bin from the unit with water and placed Kristi's head in it for a period of time, with the police statement adding that blood and bubbles were observed in the water at this time. Deborah also stated that after Robert had killed Kristi, he sexually defiled her body. Robert and Deborah would later meet up at the Ermington Hotel, where they had a few drinks, used the ice which they had taken from Kristi's handbag, played poker machines, while Robert instructed Deborah to act normal and that he would look after the victim's body. They knew that they would be captured on CCTV, which could give them a potential alibi. Kristi's body was then taken to a neighbouring unit and placed in the shower. Robert allegedly dumped her car in a no-stopping zone nearby, where it was found a few days later. The police went on to say that sometime after this, the accused dismembered the victim's body, removing her head, arms and legs, and then he dumped the body parts in separate neighbourhood bins in the local area, with there now being extremely little hope of ever finding them. Approximately 2 weeks after the murder, it is believed that Robert dumped Kristi's torso in the reserve in Doonside. The police had established through telephone records that a statement given by Robert and Deborah on the 24th of July, claiming that they had last seen Kristi after an ice buy at Homebush on the day of her alleged murder, was false. The pair were interviewed again after the discovery of the torso, then on the 18th of August, affected by Kristi's father's plea for information. Deborah went to speak to the police to tell them all of the details that would ultimately form the basis of the police's case against the pair. Kristi's father was surprised with the allegation that his daughter had been involved in a drug deal on the day of her death, stating that, "It's not consistent with what I know, but police say that text messages confirm that Kristi was intending to make a deal with Robert." Her father also said that they knew Robert had been a friend of his daughter, adding that he had appeared to be infatuated with her. Deborah's sentencing hearing took place first. At this, she said how she constantly questioned herself about why she had waited 2 months before going to the police. "I could never have stopped what happened to Kristi, but I question why I can't have said or come forward sooner." She went on to say that she feared Robert, who had said that she would be next, and as such did exactly what she was told. Deborah's barrister, Richard Button SC, submitted that the judge could impose a suspended sentence, citing Deborah's help to the authorities and her giving evidence against her former lover, adding that she is a sad, lonely, damaged person and alcohol and drugs have been an attempt at self-medication. However, Keith Alder for the Crown said that this would be manifestly inadequate and referenced the 2-month period before Deborah went to the police, despite the fact that she had stopped having contact with Robert in early July. The court ordered that Deborah be placed on a good behaviour bond, meaning that she would not serve any prison time. Robert's trial then took place in June 2012. The Crown Prosecutor, Christopher Maxwell, QC, stated that Deborah would be a key witness in the trial. The jury was told how Kristi had cut off Robert's drug supply because he was not meeting payments, but she agreed to go to his flat on the day of her death after he told her he had cash for ice. The events as previously described were relayed to the court, and the jury also heard evidence from Robert's prison cellmate who had asked if he had slit Kristi's throat. According to the cellmate, Richard replied, "No, that's not quite right. I cut her up into bits. That stupid junkie bitch deserved it." The jury also heard how Robert had told a friend during a recorded phone call from the prison that it was Deborah who had killed Kristi. However, the Crown Prosecutor dismissed this claim, stating that Robert was desperate to put the blame onto other people. At one point, he even provided details that Kristi had allegedly been kidnapped by members of a biker gang. The defence claimed that Deborah's evidence was fanciful and illogical, stating that she had received a reduction in her sentence for testifying against Robert and had clearly told lies in her evidence. The defence also stated that Kristi had been engaged in the occupational hazards of drug dealing, including an Australian $20,000 deal on the day that she disappeared, and he urged the jury to consider alternative ways she could have died. In deciding whether you can accept Ms. Hogden as a reliable and accurate witness, you need to look at her honesty and accuracy, the defence said in their closing submissions to the jury. Why would you kill a person who has been supplying you with ice on which you're psychologically dependent? The jury retired to deliberate and on the 4th day returned their verdict: not guilty of murder and not guilty of the alternative charge of manslaughter. Kristi McDougal's father, Don, who had been present throughout the 5-week trial, appeared shocked when the verdict was handed down. He declined to comment to the press outside of the courthouse. In August 2012, in a judgment handed down in the New South Wales Supreme Court, Justice Stephen Rothman did uphold the lesser charge of improperly interfering with human remains. He said that, while no single piece of evidence proves beyond reasonable doubt the offence in question, it would defy common sense and common experience if Mr. Best were not to have dismembered the body. Justice Rothman said that he accepted the evidence that Kristi had been dismembered with a hacksaw, that the tool was borrowed by Robert, and that it was later found in his van with substances matching her DNA. That evidence and other factors led to his finding, he said. but he rejected a charge that Robert had indecently interfered with Kristi's body, finding that it rested too heavily on Deborah's testimony, whom he said was unreliable. In handing down his judgment, Justice Rothman said he agreed the Crown had failed to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Robert killed Kristi, adding that it is just as likely that Miss Hogden killed the deceased, or perhaps both were involved, or, although less likely, a third and unknown person. Robert faced a maximum sentence of 2 years for interfering with human remains, but would be released almost immediately as he had been in jail awaiting trial since August the 18th, 2010. In 2014, he was charged with intimidating the officer who brought the murder charge against him after he allegedly walked into Blacktown Police Station and asking to speak to Detective Matthew Fulham on the phone. He told the duty officer, Sam A. Morgan, "I got acquitted of murder. He is continuously harassing me." When asked if he wanted to make a complaint, Robert allegedly told Sergeant Morgan, "You are all corrupt, and just tell him that if he doesn't back off, I'm going to go and get a gun and kill him." Detective Fulham testified in a hearing at Blacktown Local Court last year that he felt intimidated after hearing of the conversation. The detective said that he knew many things about Robert and believed him entirely capable of carrying out the threat. However, the magistrate dismissed the charge because the threat wasn't made directly to Detective Fulham. That ruling was overturned on appeal by Supreme Court Justice Robert Holm, who found it wasn't necessary to establish the threat was carried out in Detective Fulham's presence. Justice Holm set aside the decision to dismiss the charge and ordered the case to go back to the local court. If found guilty, this could have resulted in a prison sentence of 5 years. However, I've been unable to find out the outcome of this case. If any of you have an update of this, please reach out to me at thecrimereel@gmail.com. Okay, so time to move on now with some petty crime. And now we go to Buffalo in New York. And Beth has kindly sent in her kitty cat criminal for us all. So famous, Catus Maximus is already on the television and then likes to sit in this bed on the wall. Catus Maximus is guilty of being adorable and mischievous, and also has just recently celebrated their 1-year anniversary on the 18th of November of being owned and loved by Beth. If you ever want to send in one of your pets, please email me at thecrimereel@gmail.com. Please remember to subscribe, and thanks very much for listening to today's case. Next week, we will probably be covering a case from America. Thanks for listening to The Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye. Psst. Ermington, New South Wales, is named after a village in Devon, England, where an explorer called Edmund Lockyer used to live, and he named the Australian town Ermington. Goodbye.